Hi, I'm Seamless, and today is Saturday, which means it's time for a new weekly live stream. And today, I am streaming with Celldweller.
What's up?
Yeah. So today is going to be a bit of a live Q&A about production, mostly production. You can try and ask questions about other stuff, but we're probably not going to answer them. I also have the caller thing set up, and I have the chat open. We're good to go. Everything is working. It's good. I feel good. So should you.
We're breaking records.
Quite.
Setting trends.
So, Clay, since we're just starting and now people on YouTube are going to see this for the first time, I would like to comment that your studio is absurd and full of awesome things.
Well, all this stuff here that you're seeing, that's actually all it's just a paper prop that I got on eBay for $30. So it's really just a flat thing that I put against the wall. So when I do Skype calls like this, it looks like I actually know what I'm doing.
I got to get me one of those.
I think there's like 3 left. The same buyer. I'll link you to the buyer. He's got like 3 left, and you can pick any color you want for the centerpiece and stuff like that. That could be any color you want.
Pretty good.
So you see, you've got this kind of symmetrical bullseye kind of thing.
Nice. See, what's funny is that, like, if I really felt like I could get a green screen and then have you take like a picture of like your background and I just put that back here and then like I just
it's a good idea. Do it.
You'd be like, we're in the same place, but we're not. Green screens. Someday that'll be a thing. So let's see. Is anybody in the chat saying something useful yet? Let's see.
I see harder, better, faster, stronger. I don't think that's useful yet.
Okay. Actually, so this guy asked a cool question. Do you like 2 Steps from Hell?
Do I like 2 Steps from Hell?
Yes.
From what I'm familiar with them, yes. I'm actually, I've talked to Nick a few times about actually working on a track together, so we have discussed that possibility. It's just a matter of arranging our schedules.
That would be really cool. Like, I'm big into their music, and I also, because like, you know, Nick, or is it both of them that are both, they both work on the East-West stuff, or is it just Nick?
I know that Nick does. I'm not sure about his partner, but I know for sure Nick does. That's how I knew who Nick was, actually.
Yeah, I mean, me too. That's how I found out about him, because he made such killer demos for like Hollywood Strings and stuff.
Yep.
Allegro agitato. It's my favorite. If I said that word right, I probably didn't.
No one will know. Just the internet.
That's the truth. Okay, so here's a pretty basic production question. What DAW are you using?
Well, that's a great question. What DAW I'm using now is quite different from what I would have said a year ago. But I'm now using Cubase. But before that, I was using Pro Tools, and I'm so excited that I finally ditched Pro Tools and will hopefully never have to use it again. Cubase is just such more of a creative environment. I'm way happier with it. I don't feel like I'm getting bent over the couch when I have issues or being talked down to like I'm a little child. So I took $20,000 worth of gear that my most recent purchase of Pro Tools, and I sold it. It's gone. So I'm on Cubase, and I actually pretty recently have started using FL to do a lot of sound design. Watching Steven, in fact, Steven has kind of taught me a lot of what I know about FL, because the whole GUI and the way things work is really different than anything I had used before. And sometimes as simple as finding out how to route audio confused the hell out of me. Yeah. So I'd watch Steven say something, I'd be like, oh, that's how you do that. Done.
Yeah, I definitely can sympathize with the idea that FL is pretty much as far away from everything else as possible in terms of like UI and workflow. Because I have the opposite problem where I pretty much started with FL, and then I try to use anything else, and it doesn't really work so well.
You're kind of lost, right? And they're just conventions. I mean, audio is audio. Yeah. It's like you use compressors and limiters the same way. But like anything else, they have different sounds, and then it's just a matter of figuring out how to get around a DAW so that you know what you're doing. The problem is if I'm using a DAW or I'm in a piece of software or hardware that I'm not familiar with, I either have to be excited about experimenting with it, or I'm just going to go use something that I already know how to use, because I don't want to waste 3 months trying to figure out how to pull up a kick and a snare,
Yeah.
But once I realized that because FL is so unconventional, that actually gave me different creative ideas. So once I got familiar with the conventions of FL, it's pretty cool. Like, just it opened my mind to doing different things that I wouldn't have ordinarily done.
That definitely works out. Let's see. Someone had asked. I don't. People are saying Mr. Scott a lot. Is Scott Fisher in the chat? That's
Scott Fisher.
yeah. He's FL's PR guy.
Oh, Scott. Oh, I
People
don't.
keep
Is he?
they keep talking about to see Mr. Scott will ever head to Australia to do a tour. Or no, someone else named Scott. You see, I saw Scott in Australia, and I assume they're talking about Scott
Got
from
it.
Amazon. Yeah. So someone had asked, what do you do for your guitar tones? Which I guess is a pretty important question given your penchant for guitar usage.
Well, it varies. I go between software based, guitar emulations like Pod Farm. I use Homicide a lot when I want really gritty, nasty guitars, but I have sitting right over here a dual rectifier Mesa Boogie head. I've got a Soldano head, and I have an isolation cabinet in one of my other rooms back there that allows me to crank it up and mic it and then record it. So it really depends on what I'm going for. Really, probably within the last year, I've mostly been using software because it's just quick and easy. And I like the fact that I can record the direct signal and at any point later on, change my sound before mix or during mix.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about reamping.
Right. So if I'm looking for a very specific Mesa Boogie kind of tone or an amped kind of sound, I'll use an amp. But really, for the most part right now, I'm using software.
That's pretty good, pretty handy. I have to imagine that must be easier for doing much more like, not necessarily like futuristic, but just like different and like unique tones. And like,
Different.
especially
What is a big, one thing I love to do is because I have a direct tone, I can pitch bend my direct guitars pre-distortion. If any of you have ever cut up distorted guitars that have been recorded and you pitch them up even a half a semitone, you pitch them up one semitone, they start chipmunking very quickly.
Yeah.
When you do it pre-distortion, you can do crazy bends and all kinds of weird things, and the distortion just kind of irons out a lot of the weirdness, and you can do some really pretty believable stuff, although I don't really spend a lot of time trying to do believable stuff. I like the fact that it doesn't sound believable. That's what attracts me to the sound. Yeah.
Oh, did you look at that demo I showed you for the Evertune bridge?
Yes, I did. I thought I hit you. Yeah, I did. I emailed you back on that. That was. I'm looking into it for sure.
Yeah, that thing.
Because I don't know how it works, but I'm not sure if maybe God himself had created that or what, but it just seems almost too heavenly to be true. Like, you don't have to tune your guitars.
I know. God, it's just like, if it weren't for the fact that like modifying a guitar is just like so far in my price range, and that like I'm not that focused on guitars, so it's like it wouldn't be as necessary. But like it's amazing. It's fantastic. Yep. If none of you know what I'm talking about, just preface this for a second because you need to know. The Evertune bridge it's a floating saddle bridge, and purely mechanically, like there's no motors or anything, it keeps your guitar in the same tension as what you set it up in, and it will not change ever, no matter what. And I mean that, no matter what. You could break the string, you can break the neck in half, and like all this stuff, and like it will stay the same tension. So like what this means is you can do stuff like if you like pick too hard on the string and the note kind of bends, it won't do that because it'll automatically compensate for it because of like springs and levers, and whoever designed it being a genius.
Because your guitar really never goes out of tune, which is incredible because I feel like I tune my guitars every 30 seconds just to make sure that the notes are actually in tune.
Yeah. And the other thing is that when you're playing it live, like temperature changes and playing styles, it'll sound like exactly the same and play exactly the same live as it does in the studio, which is like I know about this because I follow a lot of metal producers and they're all just like raving about this thing being like a revolutionary object.
How recent is this thing? How old is this?
It's got to be less than a year. Like,
yeah, wow.
It's pretty recent, and it's like it's necessary in life.
Yeah.
So
I'd probably be willing to cut off one of my limbs for it, even though I think they're only $200 or $300. But maybe my limbs aren't worth any more than $200 or $300. I don't know. I haven't priced them out recently. I got to check eBay after this stream. see what limbs are going for.
See what the limbs, yeah, with your limbs, I think there might be a bit of a surcharge for that.
Maybe, I don't know, or they may depreciate in value. I'm not sure.
Yeah. So if those in the chat have no idea what I'm talking about, it's called the Evertune bridge. Just Google that, you'll find it immediately. Let's see what kind of questions we have. Actually, let's take some calls. Let's do a call. So while I'm reading for questions, let's find we'll have the delay happen and someone will call.
Sure.
Let's see. Clay, are you planning to visit Russia or Europe?
I have visited Russia and Europe already, and I would certainly like to say I'm planning on it. But as of right now, I'm not touring this year. In fact, my Q&A, which is called Ask Celldweller on YouTube, is every Tuesday, and I think this Tuesday coming, I answer that question in more depth. So you can go there. But so yes, I do plan on it. I just can't really tell you when that would actually happen.
I'm actually gonna type in the chat for people to call in, and they'll see it because it's all red and big and important. There we go. What's going on with your I Can't Wait and the Lucky One videos? What does that mean?
I'm not sure about the Lucky One. There's a music video I shot over a year ago, and I hate the footage so much right now that I'm trying to figure out what to do with it. So I guess if any of you out there are really awesome at After Effects and can take footage that I hate and turn it into something that I love, I mean, hit me up. Yeah, so it's kind of just sitting on a hard drive right now, and I'm just trying to figure out what I'm going to do with it. Okay. I've been more focused on making music and less concerned about crappy videos I hate.
It's probably for the best.
Yeah, for right now, at least for my sanity's sake.
Right. We got a caller. This guy's name is The Last Disciple. I believe that's what it's called.
Okay.
Okay, it works. Mute the stream. Okay, vocoding is not working.
It's kind of grungy.
A little bit. Hi there.
Hello.
How are things?
There we go.
Do you have a question, sir? Oh, that's sorry.
Well, God, I'm nervous.
Don't be. Nobody can see you.
It's true.
Clayton, what do you think of using like found sounds and like the real world to get just warped kind of sounding stuff to use?
I have been doing that for years. I absolutely love the concept. The idea, like I'm one of those guys, and any of you producers out there may be the same way. When I'm out just doing ordinary people things, which I'm not often doing ordinary people things, but when I do, I hear sounds or rhythms that machines may make, or different tones of maybe automobiles or things all around me. And it certainly is not out of the norm for me to grab my iPhone and start recording it and bring it back and plug it in. So I love the concept of found sounds, because really things around us that we don't even really pay specific attention to make music. Or you can take those things and it's kind of a challenge to figure out how to make them make music, which is kind of cool. I've always loved that. That's kind of where my roots came from, was sampling sounds. So I love it, in short.
Cool. Awesome.
Indeed. Thank you for your question, Disciple. Last Disciple. Have a good day.
You too.
So the idea of recording Foley like that, on your sample pack that you came out with recently, Sonics, did you do that for any of those? Did you actually literally record iPhone samples and then put it, like, mess with it and put it in that pack?
Some of it, but very rarely, as you can imagine, it's not just recording a sound and then putting it on a pack. It's usually mangled through a lot of different plugins, or there's a bunch of stuff that I have on the Sonics Volume 1 that was I was in this iPad sound generation mode for a little while, where I was taking a lot of sounds and loading them through iPad apps, and just anywhere I was, if I was on a plane or I was backstage before a show or anywhere I'd be, I was just manipulating sounds and recording them out in big files and then cutting them up later. So yeah, some of those sounds originated from things that I recorded. But sample CDs and the content we have available to us have changed so much. We have so much great sounding content. Sometimes it's easier to just reach for something that's already recorded, produced, compressed, EQ'd, even like Foley based content. So I have done that a lot, and maybe I'll do more in the future. But there is some on Sonic's One.
That's cool. I know what you mean about like the general quality of like samples that you can get, like even for free these days, is like way beyond even like 5 or 6 years ago.
Oh man, I'm going back even further than that. 10 years ago, and it's like you really scrounged to find anything that was produced really well. Any sample packs or CDs that sample CDs before there were packs really that were good. Those were the only things that were really selling, and everybody was using them all over their productions. And now there's so many, you can find samples and sample packs that other people probably haven't even heard of. There's so many people doing it. I mean,
yeah.
Look at Sonics. How many of your friends do you know that know what Sonics is yet? Probably not too many.
If they do, it's because I told them about it.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
There's definitely a danger in that, like the idea that you could find a sample pack that is totally good to go and that like no one knows about. Because when Sean and we do A&R for our dinky little label, we get demos that are like really good. Like, oh man, this guy like, can produce awesomely, but it turns out he didn't really actually produce it. It's almost like entirely sample pack based.
Construction kits. It's like Vengeance construction kits or something.
Yeah, but like not even like it could have been literally that, but it's like that only things no one knows about. So like we can't like now when we get a project, we ask for like a screenshot of the project so that we can see like what if it's all just like named audio files like that kind of thing. And
good plan.
It's real like on one hand, like it's a problem from like a legal standpoint.
Oh yeah.
On the other hand though, like I don't know how much I really want to like get on their case about it. Like I am like a sound design elitist, so like I'm just like samples about like certain kinds of samples. I mean stuff that I'm not really good at making, like drones and stuff, which Sonics has a lot of really good ones.
Thanks.
I like using those, but like I can't really have that. I can't put that standard on other people. Because like if it makes music they like, then they have all the power to do that, and they should.
Well, it's like talents. There are people who are really good at taking sounds, manipulating them, and putting them together, and then there's other people who are really good at taking things that are already manipulated and making a song or something out of that. I mean, I think in some way, shape, or form, though, you have to still be the creator of the sound somehow. Otherwise, you're just taking things that are laid out for you and putting your name on it as a track, which probably not too many people would really respect that. So, no. But I mean, speaking for myself, I try to do everything myself, and I know at this point in life, there's things I'm good at and there's things I suck at. So I've learned, like you said, the things you suck at, you look for those things other places, so that you don't have to spend all your time trying to make an average version of something that you can find a really good version of pretty easily.
Definitely, that's definitely the case. Let's see what someone is asking. What's the favorite song that you've ever produced?
I'll let you know in about 20 years because I haven't produced it yet.
There you go. Clayton cannot see the future.
I want to so badly. I'm still working on my time machine, but still working out some kinks. So I haven't been able to jump forward to see what that song is. But I'll come back. Let's do another stream in like 15 or 20 years.
Yeah, we can go back in time in the middle of this stream and be like, hey, by the way. That'll be good.
Yeah, there you go. Jump right. Just edit in.
Yeah. Someone asked an interesting question. He said, "Are we both using software from BT?" And so that makes me ask, have you tried using Break Tweaker?
No, I didn't even know it was out yet. I saw a demo on it, but I actually didn't even know it was out. Is it publicly available?
Yeah, it's out. It's out there.
Okay, no, I have not. I've only seen a demo online. The problem is like I've been doing my edits by hand for so many years, and it's like to use, and this goes for a lot of different plugins, like sound manglers and stuff. When you start using that, you can hear that in a production. So I hear, like Stutter Edit is an amazing plugin, but I hear it in people's tracks. I can hear the edits and go, I know exactly what that is. So I generally still am kind of old-fashioned in the sense that I go and I tweak a lot of my sounds by hand. The thing that I saw about Break Tweaker, and I haven't dug in deep yet, is more about the sound generation, where you can take sounds and actually pitch quantifiable degrees of a sound to actually make it a tone. So you can play it on a keyboard like you can play a kick drum on a keyboard like a pitch, which is really cool.
Yeah, no, some parts of that is really neat, and like I was considering using that as like a form of like really controlled like post ring modulation.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you can like tune it to whatever note you're doing and have that be like the right chopped segments and like that kind of cool stuff. It's fairly neat. I've actually never used Feather Edit. Yeah.
Have you messed with it already?
Yeah. I made some samples that are included.
Yeah,
in it.
that's right.
So
that's right. He even said it on a live stream from NAMM. I remember him saying that Seamless has done some sound design for the library.
Yeah.
I know that dude.
Yeah, I made some drum samples and they're okay, and I made a whole bunch of bass samples and that's pretty like my forte, so it's pretty okay. Yep. And like AU5 made some kicks and snare samples, and I pretty much use those like exclusively now because they're just so freakishly amazing.
Really?
Yeah. Okay. It's absurd how good that is, and of course like it's like half of Brian's own like percussion library is included in it.
Oh wow!
And it's crazy. Like he just like. It's like the whole thing is in there, and you can go look at it, and it's like 30 years of samples.
Wow,
it's nuts. I don't even know to do half of it, but the other half is really good.
So it's got to be gigabytes. The thing's got to be gigabytes big, right? The library
fairly large. Let me look how big it is because I samples, Windows shell menu properties. It's 2 gigs.
2 gigs. That's a lot of drums. When you think about a single drum hit, it's not very big. It's file size, you know?
Yep. 5,941 files.
Wow.
Man. That was a good time. That's a good plugin. Let's see, what other questions we got? What's the main DAW you use for creating samples for things like Sonics?
Cubase. That's basically home base for me. I'm a Mac-based guy, so I'm on Mac primarily using Cubase, but that was the beauty, is that Sonics I've been naming my hard drive Sonics for years because to me it was about Sonics, like sound, S-O-N-I-C-S, but I just did it I-X because it was one less letter to spell. But that just is kind of indicative of like my take on why I even did that pack. I love sound. So although I put things together and master them and everything else in Cubase, these things were generated from many different sources, like a lot of this cardboard cutout gear here that doesn't really exist. Like some stuff there. Like I said earlier, iPad apps, lots of DAWs. I've done sound design in Ableton Live. I've done sound design in Pro Tools because I used Pro Tools for a long time. So a lot of the drums that you hear on my Sonics 01 they probably originated from Pro Tools and were processed in Pro Tools.
Interesting.
So I'm not really I can't really state one DAW and be like, yes, everything was done there. I'm kind of like, just like my music, I'm kind of schizophrenic. I just go all over the place because I get bored very quickly. So I just jump around.
So speaking of the cardboard cutout behind you, what, like, I exist pretty much entirely in the digital world, so I'm super unfamiliar with this. But how do you walk me through like the workflow of using that? Like, how do you like not necessarily creating a sound, but like how do you, once you have a sound, how do you use it in a track?
Well, there's 2 ways it can go. You can be tinkering and come up with a sound and go, okay, cool, and then you use that sound for something. Or like we normally do, you conceive a sound and go, I'm going for this, and then you have to actually use your brain to figure out how to make this obey you. And a lot of times it doesn't obey you, but you end up with ridiculously cool alt versions of the sound you had in your head. So I generally record all the time. So when I start tweaking sounds, I hit record and I just let it go, just in case, because oftentimes you'll do something and you'll do something by accident and you'll catch something that I'm going to definitely later go in and cut out and use. So I do have a setup so that it is completely integrated with my DAW. So I'm always sending clock from Cubase to Modular World, and my main clocks are split out into all this different gear. So if my tempo in Cubase is doing this, then all my information in Modular World is getting that same exact timing information. And then therefore I can create 16th note bass lines, or I can trigger notes on beats. I can do drum sounds. So really, it's like if I want to make a bass sound, or I'm in a mood for let's say a progressive 80s arpeggiator, I have to just look at all my gear and go, okay, how am I going to do that, and what oscillators am I going to use? Because it's not a massive preset. You can't just open a piece of software, access it, and press play and it goes. You have to actually create that sound. And then from my perspective, it comes from this world here into the DAW, and then this further post-processing. So I'm also taking it, running it through my hardware, like my API compressors and EQs and my Neve 1073s, things like that, EQing, compressing, bringing it into the box, and then adding delays, reverbs, editing, for timing. So again, it's not really, there's no real set way to answer that question easily, because every situation kind of maybe dictates a different way to approach it.
That is really fascinating. Like, it's kind of like it's real important that you mentioned like the comparison between using like something like that business and like Massive being just like, oh, you have like presets, or you have like, oh, here's a thing, it's initialized, now you can mess with it and save it, like that kind of deal. Like, how do like it must be kind of just like, it's kind of like how, like you have your amps and like certain settings that work. Like you must have you have to just remember all the stuff that like works for like different patches and stuff and routing.
Absolutely true. Like, getting to know the gear is half of how you it's half of how you get to your sound. The other half of how you get to your sound is not knowing how to use the gear.
Yeah.
Because then you just start plugging things in and going, what does this do? And all of a sudden you're going, holy shit, this is incredible. Like, I don't even know how I did this. So, but there are certain pieces of gear, like for instance, the one I was showing you a little earlier. I mean, one single module, I can throw it up here in a minute if you guys want to hear any of it. And this thing will create ridiculous bass tones without even me having to do much in the way of modulation. And then you take that sound, and then I can modulate. I can run this through a filter, and then have the filter cutting off in 16th notes and just, band pass, high pass, low pass, whatever you want to do. But I get sounds out of this that I cannot get out of software. Once I discovered this world, I mean, I've used hardware for years. I have sitting right here, I have vintage synths. I've got a Prophet 600 sitting right in front of me over here. And I got a couple of Junos in my other room, Juno 106, Juno 60. So I've had analog keyboards, but the idea of like modulars, where you don't just sit in front of it and start playing notes and it makes sound. You have a bunch of holes, and you take all these little cables, and you've got to figure out where you're going to plug them into, and then what you're going to plug them into after that. So it's exciting to me. It's a way to use my brain, and I have to actually think about how to develop a sound or how to create a sound. It's much like what you do, even within the box. You think about frequency modulation, ring modulation, and how that affects a sound. Well, you're doing that with hardware in this world.
I have some very specific questions about how FM and RM works on a modular setup. But you had mentioned that you can mess around with that for a second and actually show us some sounds. I
could, yeah. I can even show you frequency modulation very quickly. I'll show you a thing I'm actually doing a piece on. I think it comes out this Thursday on my YouTube channel. I'm specifically focusing on this module called the Hertz Donut. And it's the Hertz Donut Mark II. I have the Mark I and the Mark II because I'm a glutton for punishment, and apparently I can't find anything better to spend my money on. So that's why I have all this. So for instance, I'll show you. This is straight out of the oscillator. So coming straight out of this oscillator, I've got one cable. If you can see me from over there,
you can kind of see it.
Cable coming out of this oscillator, and it's going into Cubase, and that's literally all that's happening. And I have a modulation. I have something modulating a source right now, but I'm going to unplug that. So here is what this sounds like. I'm going to tweak some knobs so you can hear what it does. going to sound like a lot of noise, probably over Skype.
That sounded
But,
awesome. That's what that sounded like.
but I don't know if you can hear the subs and everything else. But and that's completely unprocessed. All I have that really going through right now is an API compressor. So once you get it in the box, then the possibilities. So what I will do is I'll sit here for about an hour, recording that kind of stuff out, tweaking knobs. And I didn't even use any external modulation. I mean, that's not even going through a filter or anything else. And I'm not modulating any parameters on this thing. So I'm sitting there spinning knobs, but there's a lot of inputs that you can send LFOs or a step sequencer that sends voltages to those inputs, modulating those parameters. So you can get very robotic kind of stepping kind of things. And I mean, the possibilities are endless.
Man,
I'll show you if you want to hear kind of a frequency modulation really quickly. I mean, I can show you that really quickly.
I like that plan. That's good.
So here's a straight up oscillator. It's a very clean oscillator. This is the Z3000 by Tip Top Audio. So here is what that sounds like. Actually, I'm already frequency modulating it. So. So there's just a straight up oscillator.
All right.
So now I can take another oscillator and take the output of that and go into an FM input. And there's different types. So this is a linear FM input that I'm gonna go into right now. And let me go into just a straight up FM input. And I'm tweaking right now the pitch of the main oscillator, and I'm also tweaking the pitch of the modulating oscillator as well. You get all kinds of Star Wars over there. So now imagine taking that and then coming out of, say, a step sequencer, and modulating the pitch on one of them. So something that is really random, and you can see how quick and easy it is to make a whole bunch of noise. And so my challenge as a musician has been, okay, it's really simple to make noise and chaos. How do you rein that in and make something that's not noisy and chaotic for the times that you want to actually be musical?
Okay, all right. I have some.
Was that confusing?
No, well, maybe, but I can't even. Okay, all right. So, my understanding of FM is that at least the way that it works digitally is that the FM plugins don't actually modulate the for real pitch. It modulates the phase, which when you move it, it's kind of like a controlled Doppler effect and makes it sound like the pitch is changing. So on your modular, that's like directly modulating actual pitch.
I believe so. I'm really not an engineer, and I'm like, when it comes to that, I couldn't really tell you. I just know what it does. I can tell you this: it sounds very different than plug-in FM. Yeah. Because I have them. You know, there are synths. I mean, even Citrus. You know, but Citrus has a sound that you're just like, okay, this thing has its own sound. FM8 has its own sound. To be honest, I use Citrus more than I use FM8. I don't really even know how to use FM8. But the sound you'll get out of a plugin like Citrus is quite different than what you're going to get out. I mean, you're hearing the sound of like R2-D2 over here. You know, like just little tones and frequencies. I'm going, this is how they made the voices of the droids in like the first Star Wars in the 70s, because they had analog synths back then.
That makes perfect sense. Like, so when you were doing the the FM manual. Okay, so before you were doing the FM, you were demonstrating the oscillator when it was just a naked saw wave.
Right.
All right, and then you were dicking around with a pitch, like a knob somewhere. I imagine there's like a pitch knob.
Yep.
So then that pitch knob, when you linked in the other oscillator, like that parameter, the pitch knob was changing, was also being changed by the oscillator. Like is that the same parameter? Because you also mentioned you did two different kinds of FM input. You had like the linear FM, and then the straight up FM.
Right. So this particular unit has 3 FM inputs. There's 2 standard, just straight up FM inputs,
So
and then there's a linear FM input that actually has an attenuator, so you can bring that in as much as you want. So if you go full clockwise, it's crazy. But if you dial it way back, you can get just a little bit of an amount of FM. Towards the end there, you heard the step sequencer kind of modulating the pitch of the main oscillator, and because I dialed the FM way down, you can actually start to pick out the notes. If I had that FM all the way up, it would really just be a bunch of white noise. You'd feel the rhythm, but you wouldn't really hear a lot of tonal and pitch qualities to that.
See, what blows my mind about all that is that you were doing all that to a saw wave, which like
saw wave. I mean,
traditionally
just
it just sounds like ass.
saw wave out of these things, it sounds so good. I don't even really know how to like when I got my first module, which ironically was the Hertz Donut, which is fairly chaotic. It was the Mark 1, not the Mark 2 that I was showing you today. But that has 2 square wave, just straight clean outputs, or 1 on the original, I'm not sure. But even just hearing that thing by itself, I was like, holy crap. I've never heard low end out of a plugin like this. Then my eyes were opened the first day that I recorded any of this into a DAW. And I'm looking at waveforms going, what is this? Like, I've never seen a waveform in the digital world that looks anything like this. Like when you're talking about a square wave, you're seeing a square waveform, like very specifically. Like the waveforms don't look anything like what you and I are used to spitting out of the digital world. Yeah. And I'm not here saying that one is better than the other at all. They are just very different beasts. I can tell you this, that I haven't opened Massive in over a year. The only time I've opened Massive in the last year was to tune my oscillator. So I'd hit just a raw saw wave in Massive and tune my oscillator until I got smart enough to throw up a guitar tuner on my input, and now I don't even need Massive anymore. So, and I'm not saying that I won't ever use Massive again. It's just so many people use it, and the sounds sound, I mean, a lot of producers are producing the same kind of sounding things. And like I said earlier, I love sound. So I'm never really satisfied just going, okay, I've heard this before. People have done this. Like I'm always looking to push new ground. And this, I mean, with 1 or 2 modules right there, I've hardly even gotten into anything really substantial or really cool. That was just a quick demonstration. But I'm going to be doing that on my YouTube channel. I'm going to start actually doing walkthroughs every month on kind of modular synthesis and my production style. But you'll see more of that in depth because I feel like this is something, when I got into it, I was scrounging on YouTube. And all you really find is just tons of crappy videos of people describing stuff, and they're talking way over my head. They are, you know, they're throwing terms at me. I'm just getting into this world, and they're throwing terms at me. I don't even understand what that means, you know. So, and I'm not an engineer. I failed shop class, I'm pretty sure. So, I don't have any desire to take these things apart and re-solder them, and I just want to make music with them, you know.
See,
so it's a very dangerous it's a slippery slope, as they say. You get into it and you buy 1 module, and then you're going to buy 2, and then you're going to buy 4, and then you're going to buy 8, and then you suddenly can't stop. And that rack that's over here, this big rack, I already have another empty one waiting to be filled, and this one's not even filled yet. So I'm in trouble. So if I need a place to stay, like, are you cool with me crashing on your couch for a little bit if I get kicked out of my house because I can't afford to? Like if I bring the modules with me, you're cool with me crashing?
Oh yeah, definitely, yes. I actually have a whole empty room and we can put them in. It's very nice.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
If I could sleep on the floor, then I mean this will work out great.
Yep, I have a fairly comfortable couch as well. Okay, but here's where I'm coming at from this analog. My whole experience, literally right up until right now, with analog, like this is happening for real. People watching, this is I'm not kidding. Like my experience with analog has been people telling me that it's like the basic raw aspects of it, like just sound better, which is like you said, it's not necessarily better or worse, it's just different. And so like I accepted that, and I'm just like, okay, cool, I can still do all of that with what I got. It's just I just don't want to get the hardware. Like I don't want to deal with that. I see no reason. And now and then that was a couple of years ago. And now as years progressed, I've learned lots of things about sound design. And one of the things, like when I was asking about the FM directly modulating the pitch, one of the things I learned is that your DAW, like, for example, like if you if you actually wanted to manually automate something like a pitch inside a DAW, you are limited. There's a height as to how fast you can automate something, and it's your DAW's resolution, which is very, very far below a typical audio signal's speed. So like there was a hard limitation about the kind of crap you can do with digital stuff, just in terms of like this esoteric and weird processing. But when you're doing all that, like FMing a saw wave in Citrus is like the most surefire way to make the worst sound ever made. Like that's
just like white noise, right?
It's just awful. It's like the worst plan ever. Why would even low, like a low frequency like FM just changes it a little bit and it's like, no, fuck you, and it sounds like you're being stabbed. Like it's not a good plan. But like you're doing all that, and tell me it has two extra FM inputs, and you have these oscillators, and you can make different sounds, and like another video's talking about like wave tables and stuff, and I'm just like, I need to fuck with that.
I already told Seamless before we actually started recording, so I'll say this for the sake of the recording, that he's the guy I think that I know that the first thing I think of when I think about Seamless is like he needs modular synths, like he needs hardware, because what you're doing inside the box with FL, you're going to take that 10 times even further using hardware, because you're not limited. Like you literally are taking cables. These are just filled with holes. I mean, they're filled with input and output ports, and you have to tell those things where they go or what you're routing something to, where you're routing from, and you can create so many crazy sounds. And I don't mean just crazy like chaotic sounds. I mean like beautiful, lush. I got a sequencer called the Atlantis. The Metropolis. The Atlantis is the other synth. Almost like an SH-101. But the Atlantis is a step sequencer, and it sends quantized pitch output. So it's not really meant for like chaos. It's like they're pitches, but it's more like the there was a sequencer that came with the Roland 100M, which I have an actual real one over there, which I paid a ridiculous amount of money for, and the thing sounds incredible. But this step sequencer is new, and you could buy it for $600, $700, and melodies and stuff that come out of this, I'm going, okay, it would take me a really long time to program these kinds of things, and they can be randomized so that I could sit here for 3 hours and never hear the same thing happen, ever. And the idea of that is just so incredible to me, because if anyone has listened to my music, I am super progressive. Like I'm not a guy that likes to sit there and harp on the same sound for like 8 minutes. Like I oftentimes will throw something in a track and then it'll be gone and you'll never hear it again in a song. So this is like, part of this is what appeals to me, as far as the modular sense. And then all of the routings and the sound design. I think you would we wouldn't see you on YouTube for a few months because you would get lost. You'd forget where you were.
Like it, I mean, I've every once in a while I'll have like an idea about something I want to do. Like for example, recently I figured out a particular kind of sound that you can accomplish with ring modulation in Citrus, and making kind of like hollow-ish kind of like Reese sound, and that's a really neat sound. But like I was trying to figure out a way to apply ring modulation to something in post, like onto a sound, and it wasn't something that was really able to happen, except that when I went to the FL forums, the alpha forums, and asked like how you do this, is there something that can be done, you should make a new plugin. And then Scott comes in and reminds me that there's a thing called SynthMaker in FL. It's called Flowstone now, and they used to be called SynthMaker, but
okay.
It's basically like a digital modular world. Like think like Patcher, only like 1,000 times more intense.
Oh,
and
wow.
It's got like it can like have individual oscillators and all this other stuff, and you have things like you have your stream multiplier, which is how you do ring modulation in this environment, and then you can just have 2 audio inputs and do it. So like I made a plugin that you modulate the left channel by the right channel, so it's kind of like a ring modulation old school vocoder kind of thing.
And how does it sound like in the digital world? I mean, how does
kind of crappy, kind of bad. A little bit bad. I mean, it does what I wanted it to do. It turns out what I wanted to do wasn't actually a good idea. And like, but like I thought about that. And I'm like, just the way that it works, just the idea that you can just have, okay, this thing generates pitch. Now we're gonna take this pitch as a modulation source and plug it into some fucking parameter. Like that's like how your shit works, like the modular stuff works, and just like the idea that works You can just do it.
You just do it.
It hurts my brain and it hurts so good.
Yeah, don't, whatever you do, don't start watching tutorial videos on YouTube, because before you know it, you'll be broke because you're going to be buying modules left and right. Because it's dangerous. But man, I'll tell you,
it looks dangerous.
I started, and I don't see myself ever stopping. And I'm not sitting here saying I'm just an all modular guy and it's all about hardware and that's all I use. I use digital all day long. I mean, really, like I said, I'm not really using a lot of digital oscillators. I'm using almost all analog oscillators, depending on the sound I'm going for. But I'm always post-processing. So if I'm recording stuff here, to me, it's still kind of in raw form, and then I bring it in, and then distortions and delays and reverbs and EQing and things like that I would do to any sound I would record, even if it were digital. So,
I mean, I don't think I could ever get away from Harmor. Like that's always going to be a thing.
No. You're the one who opened my eyes to Harmor, and now I'm going, man, this thing is awesome. I wish they would make it for Mac. Come on, Scott, do it.
Yeah, right. They would make all the money if they did that. But like, I'm like imagining, do they make are additive synthesizers a thing that happens in the analog world? Like, is that a thing that exists? Do you know? Like, could you just imagine, like, the reason why Harmor is so retardedly awesome is because you can do things like change modulation on individual harmonics. Like, if that existed in that environment, like a modular version of that, that'd be literally the best thing that ever happened ever.
Well, it's funny because one of the forums I go to, that was one of the questions that somebody posed about a week or two ago, like, what plugin would you like to see as a module? And I jumped in and I had a couple already that I was like, this one. It doesn't really matter now because I'm probably not going to do it anymore. But there was a while here during 2013 that I was designing modular synths. I'm not a designer. I'm not an engineer, but a friend of mine is. And I had ideas of like, I want a module that does this. And so we started production, and I bought a whole bunch of stuff for R&D, and we just we got into it, and things happened, and we just kind of ran out of time, so it didn't happen. But I think it's still like the Wild West, man. There's still a lot of ideas that have not been expanded on yet. The thing is that a lot of modular guys are really cool with just making blips and bleeps.
Yeah.
And I love blips and bleeps, I do. But I'm also a musician, and that's my job, so I need to make music. So I've had to figure out how to rein in and dial in this stuff so that I can make the music and the sounds that I need for my productions. So therefore, I have different ideas in my head of like what I'd love to see in a module, and maybe the day will come I'll find somebody I can kind of convey these ideas to, and they can actually build them. But so that is a good question. I mean, I have a granular synth right now called the Nebula. It's a company called Qubit, and it's like, I loaded up with my own samples, and the granulation and the ability to tweak all of these parameters like pitch and grain size and reverse forward pitch, just look 1 volt per octave, which is basically like your standard keyboard scale, is mapped out at 1 volt per octave. So between a C2 and a C3, that's 1 volt. And however that's split up, that means you can play a keyboard into the 1 volt per octave input and play it like a keyboard. You can play notes, and it will actually play like you would expect it to. And so there's some really cool stuff out there. I'm not offhand. I'm not really sure about an additive synthesizer that I can think of.
Just off the top of my head, like it would. I mean, I'm gonna say this. It should be simple in terms of just like the concept, but like it involves a lot of math, and it would probably require digital controllers. I don't think it can work pure analog, like because basically you just need a shit ton of just sine oscillators, like. If you wanted to do Harmor, you would need 516, and
wow.
Then you just have them in concert, and then you would route it the way you would normally do like a regular like your modular setup, but you would have like for example, if I wanted to do unison, oh my god, you would need okay, so Harmor can do 9 voices, so that basically means you have 9 times 516 voices, like
that's
sounds.
Crazy.
So
it's like 5,000.
It's a lot. It's a lot. It's an unnecessary amount. But like I guess actually in this 10, it's a necessary amount. But you'd have that, and then like if I wanted to change the unison depth, I could see that. I could see so many things. I could see them. My God, why did you do this to me?
See?
Why?
I'm sure that you have questions. I'm sure I will be getting some emails.
Oh.
I'll take you through a little walkthrough at some point. I'll throw my camera up and show you just like through Skype. so that we don't bore everybody here. But
My God.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's the wild wild west, man. There's so many cool things that you can do with what's here, and that's kind of what I was saying. Is a lot of the modular guys are kind of just thinking, hey, what's been done in modular, and let's just modify that a little bit and make something a little cooler. But there's not too many people. There are newer companies coming up that are actually forward thinking. Like when I was creating my idea to create modules, wasn't to appeal to the guys who were already using modules. It was to appeal to the people who are probably watching the stream, who are young producers going, I didn't even know this world existed. And I wanted to create a basic little thing that I could be like, hey, buy this thing, and it's got your oscillator, your filter. It's like a one-stop shop to get you going. Because I wish I had had that when I started. You know.
See, that's actually the brilliant thing about Harmor, is because additive synthesis as a concept is very dense. It's very like you don't know what you're doing with it. Like it's been around forever. Like ImageLine had a plugin called Morphine for years, and also Alchemy exists, and like those are very powerful additive plugins that I can never figure out how to use. Like it's just like I knew next to nothing about it. And like Harmor was designed specifically to be an additive synthesizer that's arranged in a way that you don't have to try very hard to do regular shit. Like
Right.
you can do regular things, and then if you can figure it out, you can do more intense things. So it's like it's not like the learning curve isn't so steep that you can't even see it. Like it's so like that is, as an example, is a really good idea for like modular stuff.
It's a great idea.
My God, like I'm still thinking about this fucking fanciful additive modular. So someone a long time ago, when we're talking about a plugin that we can make modular, brought up Massive, and that reminded me of a question I was going to ask: with how does wavetable synthesis work in the analog world?
Well, they are actual. Those little wavetables are loaded into ROMs that are flashed. I have probably 5 or 6 different wavetable modular synths. There's one called the Megawave, and it has 2024, I think, different wavetables.
Shit.
So you have 15 banks, and then you can scroll within those 15 banks, 15 more presets, and then there's sub presets. They're not really presets. You have to send a sine wave or a triangle or something into it. Square wave doesn't work for some reason. And again, that gets into the math that I don't understand, but you can't use a square wave because then it doesn't actually make sound. So you need something that's rounded. I'm not really sure, but a sine wave works great. And then there are inputs on this wavetable to scan those banks. So I can take a modulation source, like could be an LFO that's just sweeping up and down, or I can take a step sequencer that's playing random voltages really quickly, and I could literally put it into an input that's changing the banks. And then there's 3 inputs because there's 3 different banks. So you've got 2000, like I said, 2048, I think is what you have, wavetables in there that you can be modulating in real time. Again, you get into a situation where you're never hearing the same sound twice. Or you can just dial in a wavetable you really like, a sound you like, and just use that as an oscillator. I have a wavetable by WMD, and it's dual, so it's a left and a right, and I use that a lot of times for like stereo. So I can kind of like be doing really cool things with big stereo wavetable sounds, and but they are loaded. They're physically loaded. Like the waveforms are loaded. Some of these you can flash your own ROMs and kind of put your own wavetables on there.
That is fan-fucking-tastic. God damn it.
Yeah, sound design possibilities are
it's everything I ever wanted. And like I don't know, I mean I have never I'll deal with that later. Okay. We're
getting off the
we're actually almost done here. So before we actually end, let's take another viewer call since we've only done 2 of those.
Okay. Yeah, we still have a couple of things we need to talk about too.
That's true. While we're waiting for a call, since there's a delay, I'd like to take this moment to remind people, because I have mentioned it before, but I'm going to remind it anyway, that today is the 8th, which means in 10 days, my first EP is happening. I am pumped.
First Seamless EP ever.
Yeah, and there's a track on there that's actually a collaboration between myself and Celldweller, and it's actually pretty awesome. Like, you're really good at singing and vocals. Like, and like not only are you good at like actually doing it, you're good at like arranging it, which surprised me because I don't really do a lot of collaborations. And it's mostly because I just like the creative processes are usually just too dissonant to really work. But like basically what happened is that I made the track, and I gave it to Clay, And then Clay gave me a finished processed arranged vocal track and then all the stems for it all. And like he told me that in the email, being like, okay, yeah, here it is. I'm like, oh sweet, cool. That means I can like mess around with it and like do cuts and do cool things. And then like I put this finished track in there and I mixed it and like it was just good. It was perfect. Like I didn't want to touch it at all.
Yeah, when I got the track back, I'm like, oh, it must have been good to go because it sounded like you just dropped in the 2-track mixed version and. Psh.
Yep, that's precisely what happened.
So that song is called Death Blow, and you guys can get a preview of it right now at fixedstore.com, fixtstore.com/seamless. And there's previews to your whole album up live right now. I think you might be able to even pre-order your album right now. Is that true?
It is the truth. You are able to pre-order my album right now at fixedstore.com/seamless. I had mentioned this before on Facebook, but now the world will know more. Actually, there's a badass preview that's in the works. That should be up on Monday, maybe. It's still being worked on, but it's got pretty decent chunks of all the 7 tracks that are on this EP. Oh, it's gonna be exciting. I'm excited. This is me being excited, which is about what I'm like.
I don't know what that's like at 30 seconds because it's a delay. So I'm
oh, you're watching the muted stream.
Yeah.
Like, man, I've been sitting on some of those tracks on that album for like at least a year.
Well, that's why I'm excited actually to get this out because I'm kind of excited to hear what you're going to be doing now that you've learned some things and your head is in a different space and you're kind of going, okay, that's done. What am I going to do now? I'm sure you've already started working on ideas.
There have been a couple of new things I've been doing. Like some of the like it's weird because some of the sound design on some of the tracks that I've done are very not necessarily old, but like I can see it was like, wow, that was a while ago that I came up with that. And it's very interesting now because like a lot of the stuff that I've been doing in like the how to bases, like none of that is actually on my EP because some of them actually are. A few of them are a little bit more recent, and actually one of them is Stream Dream, which is the track that I made live on my live stream.
Wow, cool.
Back on SeamlessR 5 before I segregated them into their own live stream show. So people who remember that in the chat, that track is going to be on this EP. Also, Codename Hurricane, which you've heard previews of before. Death Blow, which you guys know as the 110 metal step track. That's what you've been referring to that as. Momentum, which I don't think anyone's heard yet. Eliminate and Exterminate or Eradicate. I know the names of my tracks. I know them. I promise. I actually forget which one's which because the names are too similar. So sorry, but one of them is like a study in like FM with Citrus. Like that's why I made that track, was to be like, I'm going to see what everything I could do with Citrus in this one track. And that was a good time. And then the other one's a drum step track, which is fun because I do drum and bass in the second half because that's original. And then there's a sort of housey track where for like a whole day, I was really obsessed with Deadmau5. Like out of the blue, because I don't really like that kind of music. That's sort of like that specific kind of music. But that one day, I was all about that. So I made a track that was kind of like that.
Catch the inspiration when it's there, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I've seen like more of your recent posts. You've got basses and you're playing guitars and stuff. And it's like, I think the idea of mixing organic instruments too shows another side of like your ability as a musician, not just as a guy who knows how to fiddle with like plugins, you know?
Yeah, so, I'm definitely trying to involve like the physical world into things, and like I'm branching out into doing more like orchestration stuff. Like there was a lot of that in Codename Hurricane, and also I want to say Eradicate. Yes, that was Eradicate. That was the one that had that, and like also the stuff with the guitar. Because actually before I got introduced to the Fixed crew, like I had really all the times I'd ever tried to do like metal and like guitar with EDM has all just been failure, just bad. So much so that like FMing a saw wave, I kind of just assumed that I only wanted to do that if I wanted to do something that was bad. So like it was working out. But then like, you know, I talk with these guys, I talk with Clay, I talk with Varian as well, and they helped me out, and like that's how the 110 track happened, Death Blow. Like, and it totally works. It's fine. Like, it's a whole new world. That's amazing.
I mean, I think the track's really strong. I think people are going to dig it.
Certainly hope so.
And they're going to find out in 10 days, or they can go listen to the preview now, 10 days early.
It's a true fact. fixedstore.com/seamless. It's pretty easy to remember. /seamless. It's pretty good. So we got some calls. Let's take a
okay.
Call.
Yeah, we can take some.
All right. Dude's name is Aaron. Hello, Aaron.
Oh, hey.
Oh, hi.
Alright.
How are things?
Oh, all good, you know. So, I got a question for Clayton. You did a collaboration with Tommy Noble. I think it was last year, maybe? Maybe 2012?
Collaboration with who?
How
Tommy
did you,
Noble.
Yeah, how did you come across Tommy Noble?
Actually, I met them because the guy who was booking me at the agency group was booking Tommy Noble, and so he hooked us up, and we did a collab, and then I think they broke up.
They broke up. Yeah. I only know one of them is Alex Gray.
I can't hear him.
You could you speak closer to your mic?
My mic's a bit, like, screwed, so...
I can't hear anything.
I can't either. Well, thanks for your call, Aaron. Unfortunately, your mic is a bit bads.
Yeah, my mic's a dick.
Okay, I heard that clearly. Awesome.
I got the answer on before, so no worries then.
Well, have a nice day.
You too.
I heard like 8% of what he said.
Yeah, it was low.
Well,
I think we got the question answered though.
That's true. That's a true thing. Awesome. Well, we're actually past time, so we're gonna wrap it up. But I have super duper enjoyed this stream. Like it was all kinds of educational.
I think I've opened the door to.
You did.
It's the gateway.
Oh.
I hope that your viewers were entertained. I mean, we didn't take too many questions, so hopefully everyone's not that pissed off. But
I know lots of people that are gonna be super duper like happy that we spent most of this time with your.
Okay, well then that makes up for it. That's good.
Indeed. Yeah, I mean.
Well, I am, like, for anyone interested in my production and what I'm doing, I'm going to be uploading consistent content to my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/Celldweller.
Yeah, do that. A couple of videos they put out so far have been pretty good, and there was one actually about Sonics, and it was very informative and very nice. I am subscribed, so you guys should be too.
Thank you.
It's a good time, and especially I am gonna watch the stuff you do about your modular. I'm gonna watch all that. It's gonna be a good
Yeah,
time.
I there's one already edited, but I don't feel like I went into depth enough. So it's just more me tweaking it. I think I want to explain a little more some of what I was explaining to you, but you can't actually see, and then we can kind of then you can see it and go, oh, I get it.
Man, no, I mean, just being able to look at it more clearly will be a big help for me.
Yeah,
like that's something that I want. God, it's just so cool. It's just so good.
Well, another thing I'm going to be doing is while I'm, you know how you give away your FLPs and you give away your presets. It's like I'm going to. My plan right now is if I generate sound during this, during each time I do this, I'm going to take a clip of, a minute or two long and just give it away for free.
That's cool.
For people to use however they want.
That's really good. That's good especially because people will be able to hear it like free of YouTube.
Right. And I think there's a big difference between hearing it through Skype or through YouTube or something versus actually hearing an audio file like you would on SoundCloud or something. It's just you get to hear the full spectrum of the sound.
Yeah, I mean, even though it was over Skype and like 12 feet away and like that kind of business, like it was very clear. It was very clear, like how awesome that was. Like you can hear it again. We were put up on YouTube, but like that was intense. Also for people who are just joining the chat now when we're ending, the recording of this stream is going to go up on YouTube tonight. And for people who are watching this on YouTube, you already know because they're watching on YouTube. So congratulations.
Thanks.
Indeed. So thanks for being on the stream.
Thanks for having me on the stream.
Very good. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, to follow Senor Celldweller here. YouTube.com/Celldweller. He's also on Twitter and SoundCloud and YouTube and Facebook. He already said YouTube. All these good places.
Social things. Right.
And don't forget also to check out my EP, Fixed Store, FixedFixt.com/seamless. It's there.
And this preview's up right now, so go check it out.
Yeah, there's previews for all the tracks. You hit the play button, you can get previews. That's very handy. And if you have any questions about any of this, let me know. And as usual, have a nice day.